My guess is you clicked on this video because your toms just aren't sounding awesome yet.
Yes!
'Cause we're gonna fix your toms together right now.
He knows me. He sees inside my soul.
Now, it wasn't always like this. I've played a number of kits over the years. Some of them my own. And for the most part, I've always had decent luck with tuning. Some drums are just more forgiving. But now I'm on yet another house kit. And it's one I just can't make sound good. I can augment with my snare drum. And most every floor tom sounds decent if you just tune it as low as it'll go. But that leaves the rack tom. I cannot get this thing to sound nice. Whether tuned up as the owner likes, or tuned lower as I've experimented with. To begin with, it's an awkward size, a 13-inch rack tom. What's more, it's got coated emperor heads on it, which make the chance of getting a clear attack and a clear tone a lot lower. So I realized to tackle this challenge, I'm gonna have to stop mailing it in. I'm going to need to step up my game. That's why I turned to the top 4 tuning videos on YouTube. Surely one of these fine fellows should be able to help me. So today I follow the advice of the top 4 tuning videos on YouTube to fix my rack tom tuning woes. Stay tuned. So I'm going to summarize what each of these videos tells us, then we're going to try it for real on my rack tom over here. And we'll see which video produces the best results in real life through the imperfect medium of my understanding. Then we'll try to extract whatever lessons we've learned and cobble together the ultimate meta method for drum tuning. The source code! If I have time, that is. Okay, let's get started. The #1 YouTube video on drum tuning. The Drumeo video with Jared Falk. So the top ranked video on tuning is, not surprisingly, these dudes. Drumeo. Let's hear what Jared has to say.
DW exotic drums, and this was my dream drum set.
Okay, so right away he's starting with great raw materials, his dream kit. We're not actually doing too shabby here either. What I'm working with is the kit belonging to my friend Alphonse, not his real name, from whom I'm renting this practice spot. I believe it's a stage custom from 2004, and it's been very well maintained, considering he's used it for about 15 years of live metal gigs.
The next important thing is good drum heads. And I've chosen, of all the drum heads they've offered, I've chosen a G2 coated.
Okay, so good news and bad news. Good news is he's using a coated like we are. Bad news is he's got brand new heads, whereas we're starting with some gently used ones. Okay, let's get to what Jared actually recommends.
All right, so we got that. Then I put the rim back on.
Got it. So he's starting from scratch because he's putting new heads on.
And I'm just gonna hand tighten all of these, okay?
You know what? Let's do this along with them. So we're not starting with the brand new drum head, but I've detuned both the resonant and the batter, so let's do this along with Jared. Roll tape.
And I'm just gonna hand tighten all of these, okay? And then the tuning process will start. So we're gonna do that with all the drum heads now, okay? We're gonna put on the head, tighten these tension rods as tight as we can, just with our fingers. Then I'm going to show you what I do to actually tweak the drums using a drum key.
Okay, we're hand tightened top and bottom, so let's get to tuning.
Now I'm going to get my drum key and I'm going to slowly start to tweak. So I'm just going to go around a half a turn around the drums to start.
Okay, got it. So we're going around the drum clockwise, a half turn each time. In the interest of time, let's skip ahead a little bit. At this point, I've got a couple questions in my head. How does he know when the head tension is a good frequency for the drum size or material? And how does he tune the batter in relation to the resonant head? Oh, and how does he make sure all the tension rods are the same pitch? Anyway, Jared makes a couple revolutions around the top head, tightening the lugs a half turn at a time. And I don't think Jared's explicitly said this, but I think he's also tuning the resonant head to the same pitch. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to flip this over, and just as we did with the top head, we're going to give this 2 revolutions of a half turn on each lug. And again, just like the video, this is relatively arbitrary to the size of the drum. He just wants us to give it a couple revolutions.
So now that I've kind of just tuned it up a little bit, I'm just going to hit it and hear how it sounds. Okay, so you're going to hear it go wow, wow, wow. I don't like that at all. I like to hear just a do, do, do. Okay? And with the reso head, I actually didn't make any adjustments, nor am I changing the reso head, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what I want to do there.
So here's where we get to the resonant head. And actually, let me put this on a stand so we can hear it the way Jared does.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just check the pitch by each tension rod.
Great, so let's do the same thing. Interestingly, I usually put a finger in the middle of the drum, but Jared doesn't do that, so let's see how this goes. Great, I think we're good for both the top and the bottom heads. Let's hear what's next.
All right, now I'm going to hit the drum again, hear how it sounds.
Okay, drum check. Actually, that's not half bad. Anyway, let's see what's next.
Now what I want to talk about is the tension of the top head, the batter head, in relation to the resonant head. Now, a lot of people say the tone should be the same. So if I hit the 10-inch batter head, you hear a dun 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 or dun 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 dun. I want that same tension on the bottom. Now, I usually like to tune it a little bit lower than the top head.
Cool, so he likes the resonant head lower. Let's compare our batter and resonant heads. Here's the batter, and here's the reso. So it looks like the resonant head is just a little bit below the batter in pitch. Let's see what Jared has to say about this.
If I was struggling to find the sound or figure out what's wrong with the sound, why am I getting these overtones and stuff like that, I would probably tweak the resonant head first.
So by coincidence, just like Jared did, we actually got this pretty close to the way he wanted it, where batter is higher than resonant by just a little bit out of the box. And as you can see, it doesn't sound half bad. Also keep in mind, this is an old head and not a completely new drum. Still, I wonder if one of those other videos can suggest a way to improve. Let's get on to number 2. The number 2 YouTube video on drum tuning, Rob Brown's video. So Rob's actually got a pretty radical departure from all the other approaches I looked into, so let's get into it.
This is completely dead, all right? Bottom head and the top head, completely dead. The heads I have on this tom, I got a Evans UV1.
And Rob's also starting from scratch, completely detuned. And he's also using new or relatively new heads. Let's continue.
So here's how it goes, man. Drum key, one hand, palm in the other. Follow me on this. Take your palm, press down on the center of the head like that. Apply constant pressure on the center of this head. As soon as you press down, whether you got coated head or a clear head or whatever, just press down. As soon as you do that, you're gonna see wrinkles. And all we're gonna do, man, while you're pressing down on the center, turn that drum key until the wrinkles in front of that tension rod disappear. And that's it.
Well, this is different. Well, to the Batcave. Okay, I've detuned everything again, and I'm using a turnable drum throne, which allows me to rotate the drum and also have something solid underneath it. And let's do exactly what Rob recommended. I'm going to put pressure on the drum with the palm, and then I'm going to go around the drum and tune each of these lugs until the wrinkles disappear. And then Rob recommends that you do the same thing for the bottom head, so we'll just go ahead and do that.
For heaven's sakes, man, do not overthink this.
Okay, done. According to the video, the drums should sound decent already.
And check this out. I can hear it singing already. Listen to that. Oh, yeah. Grab this stick. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, not half bad. So what's the secret? Let's let Rob explain.
You're putting the shell overall on the lowest possible pitch of that shell. So you're putting it right at the bottom of that tuning range. Both heads are kind of moving at the same time, and that's sort of low range, and that's what gives you the fullness. That's why it sounds so round and full and resonant.
Well, for our purposes, this is definitely an improvement on the original. So far, I like this approach. It's no nonsense and easy to do, but it also has a feedback mechanism to tie it to the resonant frequency of the shell, the wrinkles. He also doesn't waste time getting the heads perfectly in tune with themselves. So far, I like this method a lot, but let's see what the other YouTubers have in store for us. The number 3 drum tuning video on YouTube, How to Tune Your Drums Like a Pro with Rick Beato. Rick's got some detail. A lot of detail, it turns out.
There are 2 different types of hoops. These are triple flanged hoops, and which are typically found on Ludwig drums. You can also have die-cast hoops that you find on Gretsch drums. There's also single flanged hoops, but you don't find those as much.
Rick's a recording engineer and he likes to collect vintage drums, so it makes sense that he's got an eye for hardware. Of course, I'm stuck with the hardware I've got in this studio, so anyway, let's get into what he says. Like Jared and Rob Brown, Rick likes to finger tighten it first.
It makes it easier to tune when you start with a drum that's already been finger tightened.
He also does something Jared and Rob didn't do, which is seat the head.
That, once again, breaks up that glue.
Now, since we're using older heads that have already been broken in, that's less important. Anyway, here's the first innovation Rick uses that I haven't seen anybody else do.
So I'm going to go around it one more time. Go like this. I'm still getting a little bit more movement out of it. And one more. There we go. That's a great start. Now we're going to do it with the other head.
So Rick's putting a hand on the rim above each lug and pressing down. So he can finger tighten the drum a lot tighter than some of the others. He also starts with the resonant head and then does the batter head second. Let's grab the drum and get up to speed with what Rick's done.
Okay, tuning with a key. I'm going to start out with the bottom head, the resonant head. I'm going to take my key, I'm going to put it at the lug the furthest away from me. I'm going to point it straight towards my body, but the furthest away. And I'm going to move in a star pattern. This happens to be a 6-lug drum. You'll have snares that are 6-lug, you'll have snares that are 8, snares that are 10, but generally 13-inch toms are going to have 6 lugs. I'm going to go in a star pattern. Here, then here, then here, then here, then here, then here. And that's so that you get the tuning even around the head. I'm going to start by doing about a half turn. 2
differences here from Jared. Rick's using the star pattern and he's tuning it a whole half a crank. Like Jared, but unlike Rob, Rick likes to fine tune the lugs so they're in tune with themselves.
I'm going to go around and check my... So I have 2 lugs that are down a little low and they happen to be opposite from one another. So I'm going to give it another little... Great.
So we'll do the same thing and go around here and get the top and bottom heads both in tune with themselves. Importantly, we haven't yet heard Rick talk about the relationship between the top and bottom heads. But let's do this step first. So just to review, Jared likes the heads either with the same pitch or with the resonant head slightly below the batter.
I usually like to tune it a little bit lower than the top head.
Rob uses that handy wrinkle pressure to kind of end run the whole thing. If you put pressure on the head and remove the wrinkles, it'll automatically be pretty close to the resonant frequency of the drum. And you wouldn't think that works, but somehow it does. But Rick goes pretty deep with this.
So because this head is a thicker head, this is 14 millimeters, okay, because it's a 2-ply coated Emperor. And the resonant head is a single-ply clear Ambassador. It's a much thinner head, so that's going to need to be tuned slightly higher by about a third, about a minor third, to have the same tension on both heads, which will give you a nice even sound and a beautiful decay.
What? So that's exactly the situation with these drums. There's a pretty thick coated head on top and a relatively thinner clear head on the bottom. So let's check the pitch really quick. So it's kind of, they're about a half step apart. So let's raise that bottom head up so it's about a minor third higher than the top. So we want a major second. Cool, so we've used the Rick Beato method. We've used hand tightening, then lug tightening with the key a half a crank on each lug in the star pattern to get the heads around the same pitch. Then we've made sure they're in tune with themselves. Then we've tuned the resonant head a minor third above the batter. Time for the acid test. Okay, let's compare this to the first two attempts. Jared, Rob Brown, now Rick Beato's method. You can decide at home what you think. Okay, I know I said we wait till the end to construct a grand unified theory with this stuff, but I want to fill in some of the source code we've already apprehended. Hypothesis the first. Every drum has a resonant range where it will be easiest to tune, which isn't to say you shouldn't crank the drum way above that, as I sometimes like to do with my Gretches, but it's just if you want a reliably good sound, you should start there. Jared doesn't really spell out a method for finding that pitch. He just has kind of an auditory memory of good pitches for his toms, which is perfectly valid. Rob makes the resonant frequency front and center, and has a slick method for doing that with very little fuss. The palm method. Rick Beato accomplishes this by tuning the drum much closer to its resonant frequency by putting his palm on the rim above each of the lugs, then giving it a half turn with the key and using his ear after that. Hypothesis the second. Both batter and reso heads should be in tune with themselves. Jared and Rick both do this by tapping on the head, then evening up the lugs. Rob gets close by simply removing all the wrinkles. And hypothesis the third. The relationship between the batter and reso heads is important. Jared likes the reso head lower than the batter. Rob Brown uses the wrinkle test to get them close, and Rick Beato is ultra specific, preferring a minor third between them if the batter head is a thicker coated head, and both heads at the same pitch if they're similar thicknesses. So, if we were assembling a grand unified theory, we'd probably take Rob's method as the quick and low hassle method that covers all the bases. If we needed to be more finicky, I'd probably use Rick Beato's approach for finding the right relationship in pitch between the heads, and use the universal lug equalizing techniques both Jared and Rick use to get the heads in tune with themselves. But I'm not yet satisfied we found a really scientific way to match the head with the resonant frequency of the drum shell. So we're going to look at one more video. And the number 4 YouTube video on drum tuning. Tuning your drums with John Good. John Good is one of the co-founders of DW, so we'd expect he knows what he's talking about. Let's hear what he has to say.
You want to be comfortable when you're doing this.
Yeah.
To get this on the floor and be on all fours and sitting there uncomfortable as heck,
Yeah.
trying to get this done.
So he hand tightens to the max.
And you're using the actual resonant tone of the shell as the reference point.
Absolutely. And what we want to do is get the bottom resonant head working with that.
I know Kung Fu.
There it is. The last piece of the matrix. So we have Jared's and Rick's lug tuning to get the heads in tune with themselves. We have the Rick Beato heuristic of bottom head a minor third above the top head. And now we have a way to relate the pitch of the resonant head back to that of the shell itself. The thunk method. Now let's put it all together. Now for the moment of truth. So there you have it, the fruits of 4 different methods of tuning drums. Which do you guys prefer? Leave a comment below. Anyway, dudes, this has been a video all about tuning your drums. If you're also interested in playing your drums, because once you've got them in perfect tune, you might be frustrated that you still can't make them sound amazing, I recommend my portfolio of courses. The solo course, the practice course, and the granddaddy of them all, the coaching course. The exact method I use to go from intermediate, mediocre to a lot better, and most students who go through it can do it in as few as 6 months. But we only open that a few times a year, and you can only get notified of when it's open if you're on my exclusive mailing list. That's why, if you'd like to join, just click the link below the player, enter your email address on the next page. And for doing that, I'll send you a completely free bribe, my 3-video mini course, which I assert will make you better in the next 3 weeks than you've gotten in the previous 6 months. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. If you'd like to see more lessons like this about tuning or equipment, please leave a comment below. In any case, I'll see you very soon in another lesson of the week.